Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Okay, so hey, there are times when we all could use a little extra help and support in our lives. Whether there's something you're struggling with or just seeking connection with other people who understand what it's like to be in your situation, Inovia Behavioral Health can help. Inovia is a subscription-based organization that provides unlimited access to a wide variety of educational, experiential, and therapeutic support groups that are led by live expert facilitators. Now, you can get 20% off your membership with the discount code Cookbook20 when you subscribe. Check it out today at inoviabh.com. Inovia, feel better. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I'm very excited about my guest today. It was really funny. There was this thing called Potapalooza. She can correct me on that. I think it was Potapalooza. It was this crazy day where it's all these different podcast hosts and podcast guests, and you kind of get thrown in this like mix of people that you've never met. And Candy and I met, and she actually got to interview me, which was kind of crazy off the cuff. But we met, we had a connection, and I invited her on. So I'm going to read her bio, and then you'll learn about Candy. So Candy Messer is a profitability and growth advisor working with entrepreneurs in service-based industries to help them have successful businesses. With experience in the bookkeeping industry since 1998, Candy understands the stresses business owners face and offers customized services to meet their varying needs. Her company energizes business owners by removing the burden of compliance tasks, as well as working with them to identify issues preventing higher profitability and or growth. As a result of using her services, clients have peace of mind and the freedom to do what they love. I mean, who doesn't want that, right? Candy is co-author of Business Success with Ease, Navigating Entrepreneurship, Yes God, and Maintain a Solid Mental Health, and is the host of Biz Help for You podcast, which can be found on YouTube as well as multiple podcast channels. And I think that's the one that I was on. Candy has been married since 1992 to her husband, Garth, and they have a son, daughter, son-in-law, and 3 grandsons. Very cool. When not running her company, Candy enjoys reading, crocheting. Okay, we have to talk about the crocheting thing because logic puzzles, I love those, and spending time with friends and family. You can find out more information about affordable bookkeeping. You can find out more information about affordable bookkeeping and payroll services at www.abandp.com. So without further ado, let's say hey to Candy. Hey, Candy.
Hi. Thanks for the invitation.
No, thank you. So it was so crazy. So, I was saying how we met on the Potapalooza thing, and I had no idea what to expect. Kat Palsinelli, I've been in too many damn meetings today. I can't talk. But Kat Palsinelli that morning said, "Oh, hey, I signed you up for this thing, and it's like 8:00 in the morning." And I went, "What thing?" She goes, "Well, it's called Potapalooza, and I got you in, but you can do a VIP thing, and I'm not going to do it half-assed, right?" So I'm like, "Okay, what is this thing?" So she said, "It's really fast-paced, and you'll be okay." And I called her, and I said, "What did you do?" Because I have my day, I have meetings during the day,
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "It's an all-day thing." I said, "So do I have to be there all day?" She's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh my God." So I rearranged my calendar, right? And then she said, if you do the VIP thing, you'll get interviewed and you'll meet new people and blah, blah. So I said, fine, screw it. I did the VIP thing. And next thing I knew, it was just like this rabbit hole of, craziness. And then you and I got put together and we were like, oh, okay, here we go. So it was very cool. And here you are. So welcome to our humble abode.
Well, thank you.
No,
I enjoyed interviewing you that day. It was crazy, but that's how that goes. It's different than the normal routine of having a podcast, and you don't even know necessarily till that morning who you're even interviewing and what the topic even is, but it's fun. So it gets me out of my comfort zone too,
Yeah. And I wasn't used to being a guest. I think I'd been a guest on maybe 2, and I knew the people really well. So it was just like, whatever. And then this was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Let's do this. And I think I did like 4 that day, which was kind of crazy. So, but it was a lot of fun. So, and it was great meeting you, and it was a fun interview. So, and here we are. So yeah, on my podcast, we talk about the journey, on how you became an entrepreneur. So let's talk about you a little bit and tell us your story.
Sure. Well, I never actually thought I would be an entrepreneur, but it's kind of funny. I don't know if you ever look back on your life and you see certain things that kind of led you to where you're going. And so when I was a teenager in high school, I was in a program called Junior Achievement. And one of the semesters, I was the vice president. Actually, no, I was the treasurer. Learned how to handle all the numbers. And then I was the president the second time, and we were the top sales company that year. And so looking back now, I see like I had this training on how to keep books and how to run a company, and back in 2002, somebody who knew what I did, which is full charge bookkeeping, meaning I handled all aspects of a company's financial position in the business, everything that happened, invoicing, receiving payments, reconciling, said, please help me with my husband's business. I hate reconciling. And she begged me for a few months. And then once I finally agreed, I realized I needed other clients because I had to get business licenses. I had to buy software. There was expenses I was incurring. So I thought, well, I'll just get a couple clients on the side of my quote unquote real job and kind of go from there. So that's how it all started. And in 2004, my husband finally said, like, why don't you quit your real job, focus on your business, grow your business. Your customers love you. But it was scary to give up that paycheck. I don't know if anyone else was like me, but it was a guaranteed, I know I'm going to come home every, twice a month with this paycheck. And now I have to depend on me. But he's like, you're going to be fine. You can do it. And kind of that's how I began.
That's awesome. And it's so funny. I was on a podcast this morning with Juliet Clark, and we were talking about how everything that we've done, led us here, right? Like everything, like, every job that we've ever had, a lot of experiences that we've had as, children and stuff like that. And it was funny because I never thought I would own, the thought of owning my own business was insane, right? But then when I look back, I was never employable. Like anybody I ever worked for, it was like, I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to work for anybody. But I didn't realize this road to entrepreneurship. And so, yeah, it's definitely. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, right? We don't know that we're going to end up entrepreneurs. And like you said, you look back and then you're like, oh, that's why I learned that skill.
Right.
That's where that came from. So 100%. Yeah, there's a lot of that in there, I think. And, even as entrepreneurs, because we're always growing and evolving and our businesses, growing and evolving and changing, and we're making pivots because, they're necessary and stuff like that. If we look at all of the things that we're doing and how it prepares us for that next step in our business. So what, I know I have a couple of questions to ask you, but I don't want to get into that yet. I want to say, what made you decide to become, what was the pivotal moment where you were just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give up that paycheck. I'm scared. because there was insurance as well. I'm sure there were like benefits and vacation and all that other happy stuff that you're giving up, because when we work for ourselves, we don't have that. We don't work. So what made you, take that leap of faith?
So it really came down to, I was unhappy in the position I was at that point in my life, because a person that I had been working with very easily, who is the office manager, basically had been let go, and the operations person hired his sister. And then he was kind of coming after me and kind of attacking like me. And I think my opinion is, I think he just felt those who'd been there longer and knew a lot about the company and how it was running, he wasn't comfortable, especially as women. In my opinion, I think it was as women, we knew what was going on, because I overheard him at one point asking someone how to do something. And that gentleman said, well, I'm not sure, but here's Candy, she knows. And then he just turned around and walked away, right? And so over a few months, that position just became a little more and more unbearable. And my husband finally said, just quit your job. You're good at what you're doing. I already had my job, this company on the side. But again, I was only helping a couple customers. And he just said, it's not worth it for what you're getting, and you're not happy any longer. I used to like where I was until that person came into management. And that's the trigger. My husband finally said, you need to quit and do your own thing.
Nice. And it's funny because when it's almost like the universe is pushing us, right? It's like, you were like, okay, I have this cool thing. And then this person comes in and you're like, okay, I'm not happy anymore. And honestly, it's, if you're not happy, it's not worth it. Even if you're making a lot of money. I know I've spoken to a lot of people on here and just in, life in general. And they were making like, 6-7 figures, and they just weren't happy. And if you're not happy, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm glad that you got out and you got to do something that, that made you happy. So affordable bookkeeping and payroll.
Yes.
What? Because it's cut off here,
right?
That it's been a long day. Like the audience doesn't know, but it's just been a very long day. So, so what exactly do you do? Who are your ideal clients?
Sure. I like to say that we help the overwhelmed entrepreneur with things they generally have to do in their business. They usually don't want to. And so we take that burden and then we give them freedom to do what they love in their business and then still keep them in compliance. So that could be bookkeeping. It could be payroll and sales tax, 1099s, like all of that paperwork. And so we have clients that pick and choose. Some of them have us do everything. Some of them still want to handle certain aspects, but then have us do like filings. When it comes to government agencies, people get terrified, right? They're scared they're going to do something wrong. Sure. So we'll handle a lot of that. And then we can help identify where there are some problems in the business. Like, why do you not have the profit? Why do you not have cash flow? What are the things that are affecting your business? That takes a deeper dive. It takes someone who really wants to partner with us and not just give us information once a month and not look at financials. They have to really work with us to determine kind of what's going on. But those are the kinds of things that we work with our clients. Now, on bookkeeping, I generally say we like to work with service-based businesses, not really retail or manufacturing. It's too hard to get that information, to be able to track inventory. On the bookkeeping side, on the payroll side, we work from anywhere from 1 employee up to our largest client's going to have about 200 employees. In the next couple of weeks, he's actually going to be bringing on 2 more locations that he has. Right now, he has about 130 employees. But most of our clients really are like 10 and under. And a lot of those are actually either sole owners or maybe a husband and wife team or like 2 partners, but they are an entity and they have to be on payroll. So a lot of them, they don't really have staff on payroll either. It's really just the officers. But so we can help with really from any of that 1 to really 100 is probably kind of where we want to go. But like I said, 10, 20 and under is really where we really help, because the big companies charge usually a lot more than what we charge. And we can do full service, meaning we handle everything. You just tell us the hours. Or we also offer self-service if you want to save, and be able to log in and run the payroll, but again, not handle all of the reporting, the taxes. We can handle that for you. So we let clients pick and choose how they want to work with us and kind of go from there.
So kind of, the full meal or a la carte. So
exactly.
That's very cool. What, you left because you were unhappy, but do you miss corporate at all? Like, before he came in, do you don't miss any of it?
No. You think when you're looking at that potential, and again, for me, it was kind of security, right? I had a job. I knew the hours I was going to work. I went in certain days on certain hours, and I went home and didn't think about it as much, right? And then you become an entrepreneur and you work crazy hours. You dream about it at night. There's all kinds of things that maybe you didn't even anticipate.
Nightmares, right? You wake up, you're like,
right?
So dreaming.
Exactly.
No.
But do I wish that I was working corporate? No. I've made some major differences in people's lives, not only my clients, right, by helping them be more profitable or taking a burden from them that they just feel like is crushing for some people. It literally is like so overwhelming. It's terrifying. Some people, they just don't like it, but I've also helped staff. I've developed people. I've had kids come in who took some accounting classes in school, didn't really even have any real world experience, and got them to a place where I had one person who'd literally come to me. He had just taken some classes in college, and then after having worked with me for a few years, ended up becoming a budget analyst at USC, right? So nice. I say, and I remember when he was telling me he was leaving, and he's like, I feel so bad. I really love working here. And I was like, let's think. Affordable bookkeeping or USC, where you could go get a master's for free. I totally see the opportunity for you, right? And because we all had good relationships, right? I can see what I did to help them in their journey, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that part of it too. It's not just helping the customers, but it's what I've been able to do for staff as well.
That's awesome. And, it's very rewarding because when you have your own business, you can make those decisions, right? I've had, I actually have a client who last year became a new marketing director and never did marketing. And I got to kind of mentor her as well as, they do probably 80% of their marketing through us. But I also got to mentor her and watch her grow. And now, which is awesome because now she's, rocking and rolling in that position. And she knows what she needs to do, how she needs to do it. Not just because of me, but I was able to give her, some kind of mentoring and it makes you feel good when you get to give back.
Right.
So, so what advice do you have for somebody who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur? Because there are a lot of people out there. Now, some of them, like for me, it was necessity. And everybody, knows this story, but I was working for a large cable company, doing advertising sales, and, I got fired because I didn't want to do things their way. So, speaking of, right? So, and I didn't want to collect unemployment. It was, that's just not who I am. So I started the business. But there are people out there listening that maybe are in their job, maybe they, for them it's out of necessity. So what advice would you have for them?
Sure. I would say if you're currently in a job now and you want to start a business, I would say start saving up capital, put money away, on your own personal stuff, reduce spending on things that maybe you don't have to have, so you can put that money away to build up for a business. Because a lot of people, their businesses fail because they run out of cash. And a lot of people think it takes less than it really does to start that business. So if you can, and then start the business on the side so that you're still having that guaranteed paycheck and you don't have to stress about the money, because when people start to stress about the money, they'll take any customer that comes along, whether they're a good fit or not. Yep. And then they're feeling bad about who they're working with for whatever reason. It's just not a great fit. So If you don't have that financial pressure right away and can slowly start building up the business by finding those ideal customers, you're going to be so much happier in your business. And then at some point, you've got enough revenue that's being generated that you then can like eliminate that other 9-to-5 job that you're doing, whatever that company position may be. And so that would be if you're working. Now, if you're in your position, right, like I need to do something, right? I would say number one, if there's something you could do like in a service-based business that's low overhead, and you can get some type of clients quickly and start generating that income, and try to keep your expenses as low as possible. And again, there's a difference between a need and a want, right? There's certain things you really have to have in your business. Make sure you get your business license, or make sure that you're, paying the things that you have to be in compliance. But do you have to have that most expensive cell phone? Probably not, right? Or do you have to have subscriptions in your business for certain things? Probably not. So really look at what are the things you have to start, and reserve, again, as much cash as possible to build up savings, because we know things unexpectedly happen and people get into trouble when they don't have the cash saved. Right.
Right. And that's great advice. And you're right. Like in the very beginning, right. You have to work with, if it happens the way it happened with me, you take everybody and anybody, because, you need that income, and they, their values might not align with yours. And that's not always the most comfortable thing. And I'm very thankful now that I'm in a position that I'm very picky about who I work with. I don't just work with anybody anymore. And it took a while. It took a while. But to be at that point now, it's as much as they interview me, I'm interviewing them. And I had a guy a couple of weeks ago. This is like so funny. He's been watching me on LinkedIn, and, he's listened to the podcast a little bit, which kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that. Like when people say, oh yeah, I heard your podcast. I'm like, oh, you did? Because it's like one of those things, but we're having the conversation, and he said, so I already know that I want to hire you. And I said, nice. Cool, I appreciate that. I said, so let's talk and make sure we're a good fit. And like the look on his face was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, you know about me, and you've already decided that you want to work with me. I don't know you. I don't know that, necessarily that, we're a good fit. And he like started laughing. He was like, are you kidding? You don't want my money? And I said, I might not. And then I started getting like a little, and like he, not annoyed, but just kind of like, okay, there's some hubris there, buddy. And, he said, so really, he goes, how can you tell if we're a good fit? I said, well, I need to know what you need. I need to know if I can help you. You're assuming I can help you. I might not be able to help you. Let's have a conversation. Let's, figure this out. And he goes, well, this has never happened to me before.
Interesting.
And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, usually when I tell somebody I want to hire them, I hire them. I said, well, that's pretty good luck on your part. I said, so do we want to continue the conversation, see if we're a good fit or what, And he said, well, I guess we have to now. And there was like part of me that was like, I just wanted to say, you know what, buddy, pound salt, just no. It's not going to be a good fit. But, there's that little thing in your gut where it's not a hard no. It's not a hard yes either. So I said, let's talk a little bit. And we talked a little bit, and he ended up becoming a client. But, for a minute there, and then we were talking on Monday, and he said, you kind of threw me off. I said, you kind of threw me off too. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you just assumed that, I would work with you. I said, and I've never run across that before. It's like, it's a mutual interview. And he said, I always get what I want. And it made me go, oh, okay. So I said, so what if I tell you I don't want to work with you now? And he said, "You're messing with me, right?" I said, "Yeah." Okay.
Right.
Because it was at that point, it was just like, but he's a good guy. But it was just a really weird interaction kind of thing where it was.
Well, I totally understand that though too. I mean, because we'll have people, same thing, who will reach out and we'll say, well, we have a process, we have a questionnaire, we have to have a call, and well, I don't understand why. Well, same thing. We need to understand about your business, what your needs are. Are the services we offer a good fit for you? And, we want to make sure that we're a good fit for each other.
Yep.
And then we know it could be successful, right? And so I think sometimes people just aren't used to that and the need for that. But it's like if you go to the doctor has to analyze things, right? And make sure that, if you have heart problems, but he's a foot doctor, he's not the right fit, right? So it's the same thing, right?
That's a very good point. Well, it's true. And I remember when I used to take anybody, it was just like, I want to hire you. Okay, thanks. So, and maybe that's who these people are used to dealing with. I mean, I don't know, but
maybe.
I remember a job interview that I went on, the one before this one, that I got fired from. I was being interviewed, and then I came with a list of questions. And he kind of looked at me and he said, "I'm interviewing you." And I said, "And I'm interviewing you." And he was like, "What?" I said, "What if the company's not a good fit? I mean, what if,
right.
because I've always kind of been of that mindset. And it was frustrating when I started my own business that I couldn't do that. I had to take anybody and everybody. So now to be able to be like, no, I'm good. I feel very grateful that I'm in that position. So, okay. So, there's the employee retention tax credit. So, people want to know, is it valid, and how do they know if they qualify?
Right. And I really wanted to talk about this today too, because there are a lot of aggressive companies out there that are just reaching out to everyone and anyone that has a business that basically says you can get $26,000 per employee.
Can I play you my voicemail that literally says okay, just because you said that.
Yeah, because they're sending emails, they're calling. There's a lot of it going on.
You'll appreciate the word to go. Is this it? No, that's not it. Wait a minute. Because you said that and I was just rolling because I'm like, seriously? Oh, here we go. Okay, peeps. Wait.
Hi, this is Rachel calling with the funding department at A2EC Funding. I'm following up on a piece of mail we sent your company regarding a pre-approval for business line of credit up to $140,000 with rates starting at a 4.9%. Your personal credit?
So personal credit score, and then they go on, that wasn't the one that I wanted. There was one that was about the tax employee credit, and I'm like, I don't have any employees.
Right. But that's what's happening is businesses are sending them to everyone and just saying, here's this credit and you can qualify without even knowing anything about you, your business. Did you have employees? Did you have a mandated shutdown? Did your required income drop, according to the levels? And so there's too much to go over to explain all of the details now, but I do have free resources. I actually will just say too, on my YouTube channel, I actually have a podcast I recently recorded too with questions and answers. I talk about the difference between a PPP loan and the employee retention tax credit, how you can claim it. There's a lot of information, and I actually show you how to claim it free. If you don't even want to pay anyone to do it, I show you how.
Nice.
But if you want help, we can also help with that too. But I wanted to first just say there are a lot of companies out there that are giving false information. However, it is a valid credit if you qualify. And it's not necessarily $26,000 per employee. To get that, you would have to claim in every quarter. Everyone would have to make the maximum $10,000. You wouldn't have had a PPP loan, so, but those aggressive companies, they take 20 to 30% in most cases of the credit. Some might be a little bit less. But so, if you're getting $100,000 and they're taking 30%, right? They're getting $30,000 for doing those for you. We're actually doing fixed fees. And so we're much less expensive. And then once again, follow my directions. You can actually do it for free. But I do want businesses to claim this if they qualify, because it will help you with cash flow. It will bring in much needed money. But the point of this was to basically give money back to businesses that retained staff. And this is not 1099 workers. It's actual employees that were paid a W-2 wage. And it gives you either 50% of the qualified wage from 2020 or 70% of the qualified wage in 2021 for each quarter that they qualify. And they do have to file for each quarter that they do qualify in. Again, if there's more questions on that, they can always reach out to my company and we can answer questions, or again, find my information on the YouTube channel. But I wanted to just get it out there that yes, there are a lot of aggressive companies out there. The IRS is warning, like, be cautious. Yes. Because a lot of companies are fraudulently having you file claims so they can get the money from you. And then the IRS is taking months and months and months to go through this document. And by the time that they say, oh, you don't qualify, or you don't qualify for as much, you've, paid out this money. So I just wanted to caution them, but say, yes, if you do qualify, please complete the forms and claim it. And time is of the essence. If you had staff in 2020, there's a few months left that you can actually process them for that year. You don't want to miss out just because you didn't know about it or didn't have time.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. And yeah, I found the voicemail and it said 26,000 per employee. So it's just funny, but I probably get one call a day for that. And I block the number, and then I get another call, from the company or whatever. So a lot of people listening to this are seasoned entrepreneurs that, have owned a business for a while. And we all have obstacles, right, that we've overcome. So what's an obstacle that you've overcome?
Of course, I've had lots, right? As entrepreneurs, we face like a lot of different issues. I would think one issue that I could talk about that maybe a lot of people experience too is sometimes using your heart more than your head, right? We let our emotions get in there. We might have stories from people about why they can't afford to pay for something, but can we please just continue to help them until, and I've done that before. And then I've been burned, right? And never get paid by somebody because I was too compassionate. At the one side, I want to be compassionate. I don't want to just be super hard-nosed, but the other side of the coin, I have a company I'm running with staff that depends on me, to pay their paycheck and everything. And I can't just give away free services. So I have to manage that and be, have the kindness, but at the same time, stick to boundaries. And I think that's one of the main things I've had to learn over the years is it's okay to say no to something that's a request that may be unreasonable, and I've had to just set up boundaries around. Even for myself, I don't give out my cell phone number to people because I have a staff, and I want to let them be able to take care of stuff and not expect me to be the one doing it. I'm trying to have my company be able to run without me. And so I need to not be needed, right? If something were to happen to me, I want my employees to still have employment, right? And not be like, like now the company owner isn't here and we're in trouble, right? And so when some people don't like that, where I'll say, I'm sorry, but that's not how my company operates, and overcoming that, I guess frustration sometimes on the customer side, but like I have staff that can help you probably faster than I can too, because imagine if everyone's reaching out to me, but I have multiple staff members that can help. So I think that is sometimes a little difficult to deal with, but I've become stronger over the years.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's true. I mean, I have, an assistant now, which I didn't have before. And it's like changed everything because now I can work on my business, not just, in my business. And it just opened up a lot of time, a lot more time for, meetings, a lot more time to get the stuff done that I couldn't get done before. and don't get me wrong, you have to have like a capable assistant, because I had one that wasn't very capable before, and it ended up causing, more work. But I really, I love her to death. I would be, not lost without her, but I would have a hell of a lot more work on my plate, if I didn't have her. And I think for me, the hardest thing was like letting go. Like knowing what to give her to do, and B, the stuff that I've always done and held on to, because nobody could do it like me. Right. Took me a couple of months. I was like, okay, I'm gonna give you this now. Here we go. It was like almost getting rid of an appendage, It was like, okay, here. It was the best thing I ever did, because I mean, my calendar is, jam-packed. I don't manage it anymore. I just, like all calendar stuff, all whatever goes through her. And I'll, I block time off for myself now, Monday mornings from like, I don't know, like 9 to noon is completely my time, where I can, kind of plan my week, kind of, look and, see things that I need to do, without the stress of I have to answer this email, I have to take care of this, I have to take care of this. And that was big, but boundaries are huge. I think a lot of, a lot of us don't initially set those boundaries. So, I mean, I had one client, that was texting me at like 10 o'clock at night. And I was like, this isn't even important. So I sent an email out, and I saved the email because I had my wife, before I sent it, proof it probably like 10 times, because the first one was not very nice, and it got nicer.
Changed the tone a little bit.
Yes. Because at first it was like, you have like zero boundaries. I was like, okay, I can't really say it like that. So I kind of listed everything that I'd done for that person. And finally I said, you're the only client that I have that texts me at 10 o'clock at night and expects me, to answer. And if I don't answer, you send me like 20 texts until I answer and say, it's now 11 o'clock at night. I'll get hold of you tomorrow, So that was kind of crazy. So I do give my cell number out, but I'm also very, careful about who I give it out to. So, because I'm not at that,
well, and that's the choice that we get to make, right? As business owners, like, what are the things that we want and what are the things we don't want? And that's what you get to do. You can decide who you want to have it, but you could also let them know, like, I answer texts between this time and this time, or, whatever that is. And then they have, perfect. And then the expectation is set. And if they send it, and I think now one of the differences too is we can work with people in all different areas. So someone might be actually sending it to you at 7, thinking it's a reasonable time, and it's really 10 o'clock.
It's 10 o'clock, yes.
And so if someone just realizes, well, they didn't respond, there's something, it's those that expect an immediate response, thinking like they're the most important, that sometimes I think becomes frustrating. But if someone doesn't realize the time and they're not expecting an immediate response, if they don't get it right away, then realize they might be having personal time or a meeting or whatever it might be.
Something, right? I mean, and I'll hand out my card. It has my text on it, and I don't give that to everybody either, right? But I say, if you're going to text me, text me between these hours. And for my clients because I have clients, in Denver, I have clients in New Jersey, I have, clients all around the country. And I'm aware of those, the time differences, and I let them know, don't forget you're 3 hours behind me.
Right.
So, and they're really good about it. I mean, and I'll have somebody be like, I know this is after hours, but this is super important. And that's up to me. I can say, I'm going to respond or not. But I feel that if they give that precursor that, hey, I get that I'm breaking the boundary, but I'm usually okay.
Right.
For hours. I just want to kind of throw that out there. So, that's like giving permission. But so, okay. And then another question is, I don't understand why my financial reports show profit if I don't have money in the bank. What am I missing?
Right. So profit and cash flow are two totally different measurements. So cash flow is just money moving in and out of the business. So you can get a loan and actually be putting money into the account. And so your account balance goes up, and that doesn't actually affect income. So your profit doesn't go up. On the other hand, if you're paying down a loan, right, you're paying money out. It's a liability. It's reducing a liability. That's not an expense. So a lot of times people get confused. So let's say it's a sole proprietor too, who is earning money off of the business, right? So I take out $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, whatever that is. If you're not putting that through payroll, that's just drawing equity out of the business. So your cash is going down, but your profit does not. So you can't correlate the two directly. And so it's important to understand, what is a liability that's being paid? What is an asset? You might be purchasing an asset for something too. So again, money has gone out. You bought a piece of equipment, but you can't expense that right away. You have to, depreciate that over, say, 5 years or something. So it's important to really understand how those two things work. Profit, of course, is revenue, which is you selling your products or services to customers, less expenses that you incur for operating your business. And then hopefully expenses are less. And then you have a positive number, which is your profit.
Very cool. Okay. So for those of you out there that didn't know that, now you do. And well, it's interesting because I've had like lawyers on, I've had accountants on, I've had, CPAs, I've had like a whole bevy of, different industries on here. And each person has, like in the same field as you, would talk about something else. So I find it, interesting that we get to talk about this, because a lot of people don't understand. I didn't understand what, for me, basically we were talking about what my expenses were versus what, liabilities and all that. So I think that's really cool that let's talk about that. So what, actually there's one more question here that we wanted. So what are estimated tax payments and why must I pay them?
So this is another thing that gets people into trouble, which is why I thought it was important to talk about. So obviously when you are employed and paid through a W-2, depending on how much you earn and how you claim, money is taken out of your check to cover your taxes, right? Your federal income tax. And if your state has tax, that all comes out every single paycheck. When you're operating a business, if you are not on payroll at all, right, then all of the funds that you're collecting are basically tax-free. So the IRS says you can't wait till you file your tax return to pay all the tax. You're supposed to be making these payments throughout the year. So there's 4 due dates. So there's January, which is always for the prior year. That's your final payment. April, June, and September. And I can't even say it's every quarter, because every quarter would be every 3 months. But for whatever reason, the IRS and states, if you have to pay to the state, have it as, you've got 3 months from January to April. Then you only have 2 months until June. Then you go back to September. And then from September to January, then you have 4 months, right? And so it's just, they're kind of strange the way that the dates work. But it's important to know that you are supposed to be paying your portion of the tax that is due by those dates. And if you don't, you can end up with penalties and interest for not paying those on time.
So as a sole proprietor, I only pay once a year. And I file... married, but joint, was it joint, married but joint or something?
Well, there's different, you could be married filing jointly or married filing separately.
Married filing jointly.
Okay.
So, and I do pay once a year. I've never paid quarterly or.
So it could be, depending on your spouse, if there's enough taken out of her check to cover everything that you guys are going to owe, then you're not penalized, right? Because together you have enough. Or maybe you have enough write-offs that bring that down where you're under the amount remaining that's due, where a penalty is going to be incurred. But in most cases, if you do not pay each time you're supposed to have a payment made, then you can end up with those penalties. So that's where it's really important to sit down with the CPA and really look at everything that goes into it, because there's even people who have W-2s. Let's say both of them have W-2s, but if they have other things, other like income, let's say they own lots of properties and they have Airbnb or something, and they're not having any taxes paid from that, that could even cause them to go over that amount and have penalties. And so if you have capital gains, if you have, other income, you might have to be paying those estimated tax payments. So it's really important to look at your specific situation. But especially as an entrepreneur, if you are not on payroll and having taxes coming out, definitely look into that so you don't end up with penalties.
Interesting. Okay. So for those of you out there, sole proprietors, married filing jointly, there we go. Why, you've been giving so much really good information today. I always ask, what's your differentiator? Like, why would somebody choose to work with you as opposed to somebody else in your field?
Sure. I would say there's a few reasons, actually. One is because we are an actual payroll company ourselves too. We don't just outsource, to the larger payroll companies. We can do the bookkeeping and payroll and the sales tax and the 1099s. We could do all of that in-house. The only thing that we don't do related to that is the income tax returns. So if it's a business 1120 or a sole proprietor, the 1040, we don't do those. But having it all in one place makes it easy because we can get all of the information and do all of the things that we need to do for our job. Another thing that makes us different, though, as a payroll company, most will actually run your payroll and then pull from your bank account all of the money that's going to be for your tax liability, like the next day. But that doesn't actually go to the government agencies until the due date. What they do is they invest it and they make money off of your money. We don't do that. So the money is debited from your bank account and then it's forwarded to the tax agencies based on your tax filing. So if you're a monthly tax filer, if you run payroll the first day of June and your payroll's not due till July 15th, you actually aren't going to have money taken out on June 2nd, right? So you'll have that money extra days. Usually it debits about 3 days before the due date just to make sure everything posts and gets to the IRS or the state and by that due date. But it allows for businesses to have cash flow that they need for longer. And we never touch the funds. It never comes into my bank account. And so that's one of the big differences as well.
Nice. And can you work nationally, or are you, you can? Okay.
Yes, we have customers that are in quite a few different areas. Now, because when I first opened, I actually lived in California and I had all of my staff in California. That's where most of our businesses still are. But we have people that have businesses in other states or employees now too, because once COVID hit, people were able to move and work remotely. Yeah. And so that's what we've actually been helping our clients with more lately, is enrolling in these different states as employers because their staff have been moving. And so we have people that have, in New Jersey, Georgia, Texas, Idaho, Nevada, all of these different places too. So we can really help with anyone. We just are national, though we're not international. We're not working with Canadians or anyone in Europe or anything like that. It's just US based.
US based. And so do you have to have different certifications in different states?
So as bookkeepers, we're not required to technically be certified. Now, we do have certifications like with software and things like that. I was a business management student, right? I graduated, again, not knowing I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I actually have a degree in business management. But CPAs do have to have all of that. But as a bookkeeper, you don't. So it's not as complicated. Because I'm going to help someone in Montana. Oh, now I have to have that. We can help in any state because you don't have to have a specific certification with that state to be a bookkeeper.
Okay. So, that's kind of cool. And I kind of, for me, we went national because of COVID. And it was so weird because I never thought of working with anybody, outside of where we are. And then, COVID hit, and I joined, there was this like marketing thread, and I just kind of infused myself in it because I was like, I need to meet people. I'm a social being, and being cut off from the world was really kind of jolting. And I made these amazing connections and amazing friendships. And I mean, I still talk to them today. We haven't met in person. I finally last week met a couple of them in person, which was amazing. But a lot of my clients now, they're all over the country. And I never, dreamed of it. So I love it. It's cool. And you learn, because each state is different. Each culture is different. Like every state has their own, culture and people. Like I'm a New Yorker living in Indiana, for the love of God. So
I'm a Californian living in Tennessee now too.
We're in Tennessee,
and that's the thing. I'm in the northeastern area, close to the Smoky Mountains, and so it's beautiful here too. I'm close to my daughter and my grandsons, and all of that too, which I love. But that's one of the things too that I was able to do because of COVID is hire people in other states too, where before they all had to be in my office. We, all worked till 5 p.m. Well, as an entrepreneur, of course, I worked more than that, but their schedule was, till 5 p.m. Pacific, right? And now I literally have people in 4 different states right now. I've got them in different time zones, and I've been able to hire people who needed the flexible schedule too. I've got people who've just had babies, or, someone is taking care of a family member, or they're a homeschool mom. And so I've been able to be even more flexible than I was before because of how things have changed in business now, which I think is wonderful. And I've been able to give opportunities to people that wouldn't have normally fit into a corporate position, right? And so I think that has been a blessing.
That's really awesome. I remember it was so funny. I had a client who went to Hawaii, and she said, do you mind if we meet a little later, like around 7? And I'm thinking, yeah, sure, no problem. Well, Hawaii is 5 hours behind us. So 7 is really midnight. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I, made the appointment, and I'm in my room at 7 going. So I texted her and I said, where are you? And she's like, it's like, whatever, 2:00, whatever, or whatever. And I went, so our meeting is at midnight. She's like, oh yeah, and I met, it was fine, but it was just like, okay, I know better now than to do that. But she hasn't been to Hawaii. I went to Hawaii in November, which was awesome because when everybody was getting out of work, my day was starting basically. So, and I actually called Kofi. I thought he was going to kill me. There was an issue with one of our clients, and I call him and he said, what is wrong with you? You're in Hawaii. And I said, I know, but this will take 2 seconds. I'm in a traffic jam. I have the ocean to the left of me, the mountains to the right of me. We can do this. And he said, oh my God, we can do this, but do not call me. I'm not answering if you call the rest of the, and it was just so funny because I was actually able to relax and really kind of, go on vacation, which was kind of nuts.
Nice.
So, this has been really cool. I'm really glad that you were able to join me. I'm glad that we met during Potapalooza. That was such a crazy, It's
a crazy day, but it was great. I got to interview you, and we got to meet, and now, you wanted me to be a guest on your show too. So I think it's been fabulous. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll definitely do it again next year. So for the people who put Potapalooza on, thank you. It's definitely, it's almost like speed podcasting, right? Like speed dating for podcasters. I don't know how to explain it. And I feel like today it's so funny. Like I'm very, usually I'm a little bit more mellow in my interviews, but I kind of feel like because of like the day and the amount of coffee that I've had today, I'm kind of like, but this has been really awesome. I'm so glad that you joined. So thank you for taking time out of your day. And the last question that I always ask all of my guests is,
what lights your fire?
Gosh, I think giving peace of mind to my customers, whether it's, the work that we do for them. Like I have a client that literally says, every time I call you with a concern, when I get off the phone with you, I breathe a sigh of relief, right? And so knowing that I give that peace of mind, I think I love that part of it. With my podcast, I'm actually educating entrepreneurs to help them be successful because there are too many businesses that fail. And so it's not just in finance that I talk about. I interview all kinds of people, whether it's, marketing, human resources, strategizing things for your business, how to scale your company, whatever that is. It's not even just what I do, but it's to impart that wisdom, so that we don't have to hear those statistics. Because like I said, too many businesses fail, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen.
That's awesome. I mean, and I think the beauty of podcasting is that, right? You don't have to have the same people on that what you do. And actually I've had more than one marketer on, and people are like, what are you doing? They do what you do. They're competition. And my favorite was Brittany Murphy. And she goes, we started it, and she said, Iris, what do you do? I said, marketing. Brittany, what do you do? And she said, marketing. And she's like, I can't be on your show, and it was just so funny because it doesn't have to be competitive. Everything can be collaborative, right? And that's what I love about what we do. So hang on, I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and I'll be right back to you. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, appreciate so much you taking your time out. I want to thank our sponsor, Inovia Behavioral Health. We always have an add-on before and then at the end, but just having them as a sponsor has been amazing. So thank you, Luke and your team. But everybody else, thank you so much for listening. If you have gleaned any information that you want to share, please, share, like, subscribe. When you subscribe, you get a notification of the new episode. And who doesn't want a new episode of the Cookbook? I mean, come on. So thank you again, and have a great week. And until next time I see you, go out and find what lights your fire. See you next time, everyone.